Thank God that the international break is now over, and returning this weekend we have some championship football. So apologies that I've not made a video in about a week or so. Basically I didn't have much to talk about really. I was quite busy with some uni work, but we are getting back to it now. And for what I thought we'd do for today's video, guys, is give a bit of a roundup of what's going on in the past couple of weeks in the championship while the international break has been going on. Of course, we've seen Aston Villa appoint a new manager. We'll have a bit of a discussion about that, how it will affect Brentford as well. And as we are now 12 games into this championship season, I thought that now would be a good time for me to rank every championship club's chances of either promotion or relegation for this season. So be sure to leave a comment in the comments down below as to what have you made all your team's performances so far this season. And before we get into talking about any of the clubs individually, we will have a look at how the championship was shaping up at this time last season. So interestingly enough, we had Wolves in first and Cardiff in second. Both of them obviously went on to get automatic promotion. We had Fulham, who were eventually promoted via the playoffs, sat in 9th in the championship this time last season. So as you can see from the top half of the table, we do get a general gist of what's going to go on for the end of the season. Then looking at the bottom three, two of the sides who were sat in the bottom three at this time last season did go on to get relegated. We had Sunderland and Burton, obviously both of them being relegated in the end. Interestingly enough though, Bolton, already 6 points adrift into the relegation zone, managed to survive obviously dramatically on the last day of the season. So it's all still to play for at this point. Then looking at the championship table currently, we got Sheffield United currently sat at top with West Brom in second. The bottom three currently consisting of Hull City, Ipswich Town and Preston North End. So time for things to change. In terms of the bookmakers and who they've got as the title favourites at the moment, it's actually West Brom who are the clear front runners with the bookmakers at the moment. And then in terms of relegation, this one did surprise me slightly. It is Rotherham United who are still the favourites to be relegated. So what we'll do for this video, guys, is we'll go through the championship from top to bottom. I'll give you guys what I've made of their season so far and what chances I think they've got of either promotion or relegation this season. And of course I'm interested to know from you guys as to who do you think will be in the top 6 and the bottom 3 come the end of the year. But we'll start the video out by talking about Aston Villa, and then we'll move on to talking about Brentford, and then we'll move down the championship as obviously they have been in the news recently. So Aston Villa appointing Dean Smith as their new manager. Aston Villa fans, I am very intrigued to know what are you guys thinking about this appointment. Do you think it will be successful? Also, he has John Terry coming in as his number 2 as well. It has to be said that he did do a very good job at Brentford. He had a win ratio of 39.86%, but I don't think that that really does him justice. The football that Brentford have been playing over the past few years in the championship has been absolutely scintillating to watch. You know, so far this season they've been an absolute joy. They tend to line up with that 4-3-3 formation. They got wingers cutting inside. The midfield three works fantastically in transitioning, moving the ball swiftly through midfield, getting it out wide. And then of course they had Neil Maupay, who's been firing in the goals for them so far this season. Transitioning that over to Aston Villa, I'm intrigued to see what philosophy he actually brings to this Villa side. Under Steve Bruce, it was a little bit of a mess at Villa at times. You know, we had players playing out of position, no real philosophy going forward. The football wasn't always great to watch. You know, they could grind out results. You know, we saw that last season, but even then, when they were winning games, it wasn't always brilliant football to watch. And that's why I am excited by the prospect of Dean Smith coming in at Aston Villa. Also, to add to that, he is an Aston Villa fan as well, so he's already got that emotional connection with the fans. And if he is given time, because I don't think it's necessarily a quick fix at Aston Villa, yes, they do have some fantastic talent in that squad. You know, going forward especially, they've got some ridiculous options. But Aston Villa's defensive problems are there to be seen by all, really. They're currently sat 15th in the championship, and do they have a chance of promotion? Of course they do. They're only 4 points off the playoffs. It's still very early on in the season, and if Dean Smith does have that instant impact with these players, we could see them rise up the championship. Do I think that's going to happen? I'm not so sure. I still think they're way too light at the back. We saw with James Chester out suspended, they were having to play fullbacks at centre-back. I think that the January transfer window is going to be very important for Aston Villa to bolster that area of their squad, because otherwise it is a very talented team, and they do have an outside chance of promotion this season. But I think under Dean Smith, if he gets a year to work with these players next season, we could really be seeing the best of Villa. And of course we do need to talk about Brentford and what this will mean for the rest of their season, losing their manager at this point in time in the season. They have recently appointed Thomas Frank as their new number 1. He was recently their number 2. They've gone ahead and promoted him to the number 1 for the rest of this season. And I feel like we kind of had this discussion around Brentford a couple of years ago when they lost Mark Warburton, when he left to go and take the Rangers job then, and then after that he went to Forest. And since then, you know, Mark Warburton hasn't had the best of careers being away from Brentford. You know, at Rangers didn't have a brilliant time, at Forest either didn't do a very good job there. So losing managers in the past hasn't really been a massive problem for Brentford. They've continued to progress as a football club, and I think they will continue to do that and continue to strive in the right directions. The way that they invest in players, they're very strategical with the sort of players they pick up. I think that appointing Frank as their new manager is quite a smart move from Brentford actually. He's a guy who knows the squad already. There's not going to be too much change going in from now till the end of the season, and so I think that level of continuity will serve Brentford Brentford well this season, and if I had to say it now, I still think they are a serious contender for this top 6. With the way they like to play football, pressing from the front, brilliant transitioning play through midfield, I think they'll still be in the top 6 this year. But we will now move on and talk about the Championship teams from top to bottom. So at the top of the table currently, we have Sheffield United. It's been a fantastic start for them. Interestingly enough, last season they also made a fantastic start as well. They're only 1 point better off now than they were this time last season, which shows how well they were doing adapting to the Championship this early on last year. So the thing that sort of went against Sheffield United late on last season was they got burnt out really. And looking at their squad as a whole, I do feel as if there are a couple of positions where they perhaps need a little bit more depth and a bit more quality, but even so, you can't take it away from them. So far this season, they've been absolutely fantastic, and one player who has come in and absolutely transformed that midfield for them has been Ollie Norwood. Fantastic in midfield. The way that midfield three works between Norwood, Duffy and Fleck, they all work with each other absolutely fantastically. They all know each other's games, and it is a very hard midfield to break down. Definitely a contender for the top 6 this season. They really have done well so far. It's obvious to see why West Brom are currently the bookies' favourites for the title for the Championship. After 12 games, they've already scored 31 goals, which is an absolute joke. Their forward line has been terrific so far. Dwight Gale, Jay Rodriguez and Harvey Barnes playing behind. Their wing backs Matty Phillips and Kieran Gibbs also popping up with goal contributions as well, and it is a very hard team to play against. They do have Premier League quality in that squad, and if I had to say it now, I do think they will probably go on to win the title. You know, they are probably the favourites, and rightly so at this point in the Championship. One thing going against West Brom so far though has been they have conceded 17 goals. By no means have they got the best defensive record in the Championship. They do have good options in there. I still think that Sam Johnson is a good keeper. He has had a couple of shaky moments for West Brom so far, but I think that eventually they will sort that out, as they do have an absolute abundance of talent in that squad. I do think that West Brom probably will go on to get promoted this year. Leeds United are also a very interesting side to ponder over. If you look at Marcelo Bielsa and his history in management, he's always had sides who seemingly get quite burnt out towards the end of the season, so Leeds fans will be hoping that that's not going to be the case. And even in the absence of some of their big stars, they've actually done very well. You know, players like Tyler Roberts stepped up fantastically so far. I'd like to see more of him this season, even when players like Kamara Roof and Patrick Bamford do eventually come back. And Bielsa's a manager who's not going to let his standards slip from this Leeds United squad. I think the only thing holding Leeds back from promotion this season will probably be that burnout towards the end of the season, so I'm very interested to see how they get on in those later stages. But at this point in time, I think they will be at least top 6 at least. You know, that's no surprise for you to hear. Then we've got Middlesbrough currently sat in 4th in the Championship. Middlesbrough are probably the polar opposite of West Brom actually. They've not scored many goals so far this season, only scoring 14 in 12 games so far, but their defensive record speaks for itself really, only considering 6 goals. They were on that massive clean sheet run they were having in the Championship, 5 or 6 consecutive games, which is absolutely fantastic. The defence is very well drilled under Tony Pulis. They're a very hard side to break down. Their midfield too, Clayton and Howson working very well together this season, and possibly that style of football and lack of goals will mean that they fall a little bit short of automatic promotion this year, but under Tony Pulis, Middlesbrough will be there or thereabouts this season. A funny side so far this season has been Nottingham Forest. They brought in a lot of players in that transfer window, had quite high expectations coming into this year, and the way they started the season with a couple of their performances, you know, they weren't too convincing, but they have only lost 1 game so far this season. You know, you can't really take that away from them, albeit they have drawn 7 of their games so far. You know, that is probably too many. Ever since that loss they had to Brentford away, I think we've seen a gradual increase with how Nottingham Forest have been playing really, and when it does start to finally click for Forest, which I feel like they are in the process of doing at the moment, they will be a very hard side to break down this season. Under Isaac Ranke, you know, traditionally quite a tough defensive coach, but going forward they've got some great options. Lewis Graben has been in the goals recently, Soudani's pops up with a couple. Will they make the top 6? If I had to call it now, I would say no. Probably I think there are a couple of teams below them who I do think may overstep them in these coming few weeks and months, but even so Forest are in a good position at the moment. And Sheffield Wednesday, before this international break, were on a very good run of form. That see them sneak into the playoffs recently. Currently sat 6th in the Championship. At the start of the season, Sheffield Wednesday were anything but convincing really. Their defensive fragility was there for everyone to see really. They were shipping a lot of goals, and in the past it's probably been argued that Sheffield Wednesday have been mentally weak and stuff like that, but since then Sheffield Wednesday have been in a really good run of form. Going forward has been no problem for them so far. They've got some fantastic options in there, you know, Lucas Jow scoring goals recently. The quality of Forestieri is there for all to see, and then Adam Reach, what a run of form he's been under recently with Sheffield Wednesday. But what I've been most impressed by with Wednesday so far is some of their youngsters coming into this squad. Obviously with the financial implications that Wednesday have been working under for these past few years in the Championship, they've not been able to splash out and they want to be an instant fix to any of their problems, but promoting players from the youth academy I think has served Sheffield Wednesday well so far. Will they hold on and make it into the top 6 this season? Probably not, but even so, they're building in the right direction. And another quite funny side this season has been Derby County. You know, the Championship's full of sides like Derby who you never really know what you're going to get from them, because one week, like we saw when they beat Brentford by 3 goals to 1 at home, it was an absolutely stunning performance performance from them. Everyone was exceptional in that game. And then, you know, thinking of another performance, we saw them lose 1-0 away at Rotherham United, where it was a really dreary performance from them. They had nothing going forward. So with Derby, it's quite a fine balance really between what you're going to get. They're by no means the finished article, but with some of the quality they've got going forward, players like Mason Mount, who's been unbelievable for them so far, other goal scorers in there as well going forward, Derby are always going to be in with a chance of the top 6 this season, and I could see them sneaking in. With the unbeaten run that Norwich went on before the international break, they were a side who really caught me off guard, because before that, they were just looking like a side meandering around the Championship, not really knowing what direction they were going in. There was still a lot of uncertainty over Daniel Farke, but after this sort of rejuvenation of that side, you know, we saw Timu Pukki bursting into goal scoring form. We really saw them lift up the Championship, and I think that, do I think they'll make the top 6 this season? Probably not. I don't think that squad is probably good enough to compete with some of the others who will be up there this season. The thing that I've liked mostly about Norwich this season, quite similar to Sheffield Wednesday, has been some of the youngsters they've been promoting through their youth academy who have really stepped up so far into this Championship side, and going forward this season, Norwich have got some fantastic young assets. And as a Preston fan, it does pain me a little bit, but Blackburn Rovers so far this season have been very good in the Championship. The way that Bradley Dack has stepped up, you know, his quality is undeniable so far. Already this season, he's been able to pop up with 6 goals in the Championship, which is 47% of Blackburn's goals in general, so he's really their talisman going forward this season. The partnership he's been able to strike up with Danny Graham so far has also been terrific. You can never really write Blackburn off because so far they have impressed me. Another side like that has been Swansea City. Obviously, coming down from the Premier League, you're always going to have some expectations on you, but after the transfer window that Swansea had, I really thought they may be in trouble this season in the Championship, but the job which Graham Potter's been able to do with a lot of young talent in that Swansea squad has been fantastic. Some of the goals they've scored so far this season from a team aspect have been absolutely fantastic. We've seen them score goals with about 35 passes in the build-up to. I don't quite see them pushing up for the top 6 yet. Next season, we really could be seeing the best of them. And a really funny side this season has been Wigan Athletic. Their home form has been absolutely fantastic. They've been scoring a lot of goals at home this season. Going forward, they seem to play with a confidence, but away from home, that all seems to be struck away from them. Their away record this season has been absolutely awful. It's been all over the place. But their season has been more of a positive than a negative so far, you know. I have to put that slant in it. They're currently sat 12th in the Championship. Their first season back here, you know. Don't think they'll be in a relegation battle or anything like that, but I think they'll probably settle in around 15th, 16th this season in the Championship, and then look to progress on that after that. And Bristol City have been a side who have just been dropping down the Championship recently. It's been a while since they last picked up a win, and it wasn't long ago since we were talking about Bristol City, you know, pushing for that top 6 this season and really putting a challenge on for it. I think that one thing that always tends to be the case with Bristol City is their level of inconsistency. I think that Bristol City will be one of those sides who, you know, they win 10 games on the bounce and then they go and lose 10 games on the bounce. That's just the sort of side of which Bristol City are. I think that that level of inconsistency will just push them back from the playoffs this year. Probably the biggest underachievers in the Championship so far this season has been Stoke City. Going into this season, they were, you know, being made title favourites really. With that squad they got a Championship experienced manager in there. They got England's, you know, number 2 goalkeeper in Jack Butland, and they spent a lot of money in the transfer window, but their defence has been absolutely embarrassing at times. In fairness, before the international break, they did manage to keep 2 consecutive clean sheets. Goals will come for Stoke City, you know, I mean, no doubt about that. Tommins, I think, has made a good impact on them so far. Benicophobe is looking sharp in front of the goal, and even Sadio Berahino has been able to get off the mark for them so far this season in the Championship. So going forward and scoring goals won't be a problem for them. It's just going to be that consistency in defence for Stoke. Then we've got Bolton Wanderers currently sat 16th in the Championship. A lot of people backing Bolton to go down this season after they narrowly avoided relegation last season. I don't think that's going to be the case, but there are still some frustrations around Bolton at the moment. I think most of their frustrations are probably coming from them starting games quite slowly so far this season, you know. The type of manager that Phil Parkinson is tends to set up Bolton in quite a defensive formation. I don't see Bolton going down at all really. I think there definitely will be 3 worse sides than them this season, but the thing that Bolton need to do to progress forward in the Championship this season and in the future, they're going to have to be more direct from minute 1 really, not letting the teams have a head start on them, going teams from minute 1 and then they could have a chance. It is also pretty mental that Birmingham are currently sat 17th in the Championship. Some of their performances this season have been worthy of a side currently sat in the top 6 really. It's just been some frustrations, you know, coming from either their finishing this season or Lee Camp making an odd mistaken goal or something like that hasn't led to them picking up all 3 points, because so far this season Birmingham have only lost 2 games. Obviously they've only won 2 as well. They've drawn 8 games this season, which has been their main disadvantage. They've drawn way too many games in games where they played well as well, where they should have gone to win them. It's just been a bit of a frustrating start to the season for them because their performances have shown a lot of promise. And it's just a shame that they had the transfer window they did really, with all the financial implications over them, because if that wasn't the case and Birmingham invested a bit more money into the right areas into their squad, they really could be pushing up the Championship. With QPR this season, I think they will probably be in this region of 18th towards the end of the season as well. Obviously, when they lost 7-1 to West Brom, they were everyone's favourites to get relegated. We thought that this early on, Steve McLaren had lost the dressing room. Defensively, they were going to be absolute shambles this season, and there was no turning back back from there. But since then, they've actually gone on to pick up some decent results this season in the Championship. QPR can be a very exciting team to watch. Do I think they'll go down? They probably will be in a relegation battle this season, but overall, I don't see them being in that bottom three come the end of it. It was a little bit of a surprise to see that Rotherham are still the favourites for relegation this season. I think their home form so far has been absolutely terrific. Away from home, they've not been the best, sort of similar to Wigan Athletic so far. It is always a bit of a concern with Rotherham that they won't score enough goals. You know, so far this season, we've only seen them score 9 goals in the 12 games they've had this season in the Championship, and they will probably be meandering around this part of the table come the end of the season. Will they go down? I'm interested to know what you guys have to say about that one. It's probably fair to say that Millwall were one of those sides who vastly overachieved from last season, but even so, I didn't expect them to be this low in the Championship this season, really. Currently sat 20th, and I think that probably their last 2 results actually could be massive for them going forward. A 2-2 draw away at Nottingham Forest, where they were 2-0 down, and a 2-1 home victory over Aston Villa could be massive for progressing Millwall going forward this season. Will they go down? There is a possibility, but I still think there's probably 3 other sides who are worse off than Millwall. One player who has been on form for Reading so far this season has been John Dalibud Vardsson. He's been able to step up with 7 goals for them so far. A very impressive return from the striker, scoring 47% of their goals in total so far. Obviously, a lot of their performances have been quite frustrating from Reading's fans' perspective. It has been their defence which has been their main weakness so far, already conceding 20 goals. Like we touched on with Bod Vardsson, they do have a goal threat going forward. They just need to sort out that defence. Talking about bad defences though, we then have my team Preston North End, already conceding 24 goals this season in the Championship, which is just, it's disgraceful. It shouldn't be happening really. Obviously at the start of the season I was predicting Preston to finish in the playoffs. Do I think that will be the case anymore? No, I'm realistic, it's probably not going to happen for us anymore, but do I think we'll go down? No, I would be quite surprised actually. Going forward, we have offered the goal threat, already scoring 18 goals. Callum Robinson has been absolutely terrific for us so far this season. I think that the key for Preston now, from now until the end of the season, is just consistency with the team we managed to select. Injuries of course have played a part in why we are only sat in the relegation zone, suspensions as well. We need to get rid of all that from our squad. We need to get that continuity back which we were so good at last season, and when that finally is the case, I still think we'll finish around mid-table this year. The next couple of weeks are also going to be very decisive for Ipswich Town. We saw them get their first win of the season away at Swansea City, finally after 12 games in the Championship, and taking that forward this season will be massive for Ipswich. Paul Hurst has had a very tough job in his hands with this Ipswich Town squad, you know, bringing in a lot of talent from the lower leagues. Not all of them I think have looked up to scratch so far, quite a few loanees coming in as well, and although there has been flashes of quality from this Ipswich side so far this season, do I think they will avoid the drop? Like I said, the next 2 games are going to be important for them. And then currently sat bottom of the Championship, we do have Hull City. In quite a few of the games that Hull have been involved in so far, they've only lost to quite small margins really, you know. We've not really seen Hull get absolutely battered too many times so far this season. It has been a defence originating from, you know, last season, which has been their downfall as well, conceding 19 goals this season in the Championship. A main striker as well, I feel like they're also lacking. And the next game is against my team Preston North End on Saturday, so that could be very decisive for both Hull season and Preston season as well, so we'll be going ahead and predicting that game on Friday's video. But there you have it guys, I hope you did enjoy this video. This was just a little bit of a roundup of the season so far, what I made of every Championship clubs and where I realistically see them finishing. Do I think they've got a chance of the top 6, or do I think they will be in and around the bottom of the Championship? Let me know down below what are your current predictions for the top 6 and the bottom 3, and where do you see your club finishing come the end of the season. But apologies for the lack of videos recently, but now we are back into some Championship football. The international break is over, we should be coming back with some regularity. So if you did go into enjoy, make sure you do leave a like. Also be sure to subscribe for some regular Championship content. But apart from that, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one.